Hello, everybody. It is noon, but I'm going to give it just a quick minute. And I know everybody is muted, so if you said hello back, I appreciate it, but we won't be able to hear you. I guess I'll introduce Keaton. Keaton is our finance director. I asked him to help out with some of the tech stuff. So, Keaton, can you confirm for me that I'm being seen and heard?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. All right.
Hello, everyone.
I see our recording is started. Hope that's okay for everybody. I'm going to go ahead and get rolling. Everybody who registered and we'll make available for even those who haven't who are interested. Um, you should be notified when the recording becomes available. Should happen just a few minutes after we close up here. Um, just a couple of quick housekeeping things. First of all, this is the first time I've done this ever through Teams, so this is a new technology for me. If I screw up, I hope I'll get some clemency there. We do have a Q&A. I think you should be able to see it at the top of your screen. So if, as I'm going through here, you want to throw some questions in the Q&A section, Keaton's going to keep an eye out for those, and maybe we can run through those at the end. I'm going to try and go fairly quickly. I just have a couple of slides and things I wanted to go through to kind of set up what is this technology and maybe more importantly, why is this technology? And then I wanted to leave some time for questions. I've already gotten one or two by email of people who sent regrets and said, "Hey, if you don't touch on this in the main body, could you address this?" So I've got a couple questions going already. I think I see something in the chat already. Ah, thank you, Joel. So apparently the chat is working as well. So good. I guess I set that up correctly when I set the meeting up. So all right. Without any further ado, there, I'm gonna dive into what I'm going through here. This really kind of started at ISC West this year, which happened in April. It's the industry's biggest trade show. If you've had any conversations with us or been at all involved in the industry in the last few years, you know the big move is to artificial intelligence. I suppose that's true of a lot of industries. Like, what can this new technology do for us? Um, is it going to be the end of an industry, the start of a new industry? Exactly what is it good for? And so on. So I've heard a lot of hype about it, which is why I titled this the way I did. Uh, is AI actually going to make anything better in what we do and how we do it in the kinds of problems we solve? One thing is very certain, which is what I'm going to address first, is that this ground is shifting very fast. So what we saw out at the trade show is everybody is kind of putting their own stamp on AI, how they expect it to help the industry, and what kinds of capabilities are possible today that weren't possible without it. We have looked at a ton of new technologies, and from other industry events that we went to in the fall to April, things had already changed. And people come up with new and better ideas and how to implement them and whether they're actually going to work. So, what I say here in September of 2024, um, I have one pretty solid prediction that I feel pretty good about. By this time in 2025, things will have changed at least somewhat. So, with that in mind, one of the things we were looking for is there a technology that is an actual leap forward, more than just an incremental improvement over technologies that already existed? Is there something we can truly layer on to give a capability that we never had before? And for some of the technologies we saw, that answer was no. This isn't good enough. It's not worth really pursuing to any great degree. But there was one put out by a company called Ambient AI, which is most of what I'm going to be showing today. And one of the reasons we chose them as a partner, probably the single biggest reason we chose them as a partner, is they are actually doing things differently and making what I believe is actually a leap forward. So to that end, I'm gonna jump to this. One of the things that we pride ourselves on and try to differentiate ourselves in the marketplace is we're here to solve problems. We're not here to just install instrumentation and hope that it does some good. We start with problems that our customers are telling us. So I'm going to throw a number of them up here. These are real world things we have heard from our customers. We do a lot in public spaces and in some larger companies. We do some things with companies that have a full-blown security operations center and other clients that don't have that have to rely on existing staff and kind of passivity in these systems to operate them. And likewise, we're in a number of different industries. So some of these may apply to you. I noticed we have some parks folks and we have some school district folks with us and other registrants that I'm sure will be looking at the recording. And we have some people in the commercial spaces too. So these are all things we've heard. And when we design systems, we are to the greatest extent possible trying to solve these real deep problems. So for instance, something that was said to Chris Gilbert, our founder, a number of years ago, is a parks director said, hey, mothers don't want to bring their kids to the park. And of course, we drilled into that. And well, why is that? They were having a problem with cleanliness in the bathrooms and general appearance of the park and things that were found and stepped on in the playground, various contraband items and things that moms just didn't want to expose their kids to. So how are we in a security industry going to address that? And we were able to help them. We were able to put surveillance in some places and tie it to some monitoring and be proactive about just in the middle of the night in an unfenced public area, being able to bring a level of security to it. And we've done similar things on riding trails. We have a number of other problems up there that I'm going to say we really haven't been able to solve very well. A big one of which that we hear all the time is I don't have the staff to watch all of our camera feeds. They can put in video surveillance in a very wide swath of their operation, but if they don't have the staff to respond to it and to have it be autonomous, it really doesn't, it doesn't reach its full potential. So we're trying to get a giant leap forward in addressing those problems. Now, the things we put in place in the past were great, advanced a lot of technology, but everything has its limitations. So I wanted to touch on really what drives us to try and find that leap forward. Why aren't we happy with the ones we have? Not that we're not, but why keep looking? We're definitely not to an endpoint where we're able to solve all of those customer problems. So video surveillance, forever, the features of it have been to deter, detect, and document what's going on. We have been trying for a number of years. Sometimes we've been able to, and in other cases it hasn't fit, to actually turn that into actual prevention. But in any case, the cameras have gotten a lot better. The improvements in video surveillance have largely been around getting better resolution, more pixels, excuse me, better night vision, able to see over wider areas, sometimes even 360 degrees, and all of that's great. Um, but those are really just better detectors. Alarm systems, I've not been a strong proponent of really throughout my career for a couple of the main problems I have with it. The biggest of which is it only operates when it's armed, which typically is when you don't have people in your facility. So for entire industries, that has very little utility. And even for the ones where it does, the detectors it uses are pretty basic. They're very limited. A motion detector operates by seeing heat. It can't tell you what that heat is, whether it's a person or an animal or a plume from your furnace dropping down in front of your motion detector. It really can't equate what it's seeing to what we're hoping it is detecting. Access control systems, very sophisticated these days, very effective, but they do rely on a portal, a door, or a gate. They do very well at keeping the right people out and really making it very seamless for the right people to get in and operate very efficiently. But if you have an open space like a park, or you have a different kind of operation where you're not behind a door or you don't have doors in the right place or the right kind of door, it has its limitations. Likewise, the detectors that an access control system relies on, you're counting on a card to represent a human being or some kind of a credential. Even if it's in a mobile wallet, you're counting on whatever is presented to the detector at the door to accurately represent that this really is Mike and Mike is allowed in, so go ahead and open the door. So uh, they've taken us very far, but they have their limits. So we have amazing detectors. That's something we've been working on, obviously, for years, but that's just the eyes and ears of the system. What we need is a better brain, something that is making better decisions. Cameras are great witnesses, but we need something better than a great witness. So we need something that these detectors are tied to that makes better decisions. So typically what we've done is we've sent alerts from these great detectors to you and counted on you or your staff, or maybe you hire us as a monitoring company to make those decisions for you. And what do we do with those decisions, or what does your staff do? Maybe they call law enforcement, maybe they interdict themselves. But in any case, they're relying on a human being to look at what the detector is telling them and to take appropriate action. So that's great, but it's of limited use, right? So what we really need is an automated system, something that doesn't rely on you being the active part in the active brain to look at what it's seeing the same way you would. You wouldn't look at just a camera view and look at one thing in that view and try to make decisions on that. You're looking at the entire camera view. So in this picture, there's a person walking, but they're walking past a door, standing next to a wall. These are all things humans do that cameras have been unable to do. That now that we can layer in some better decision making and some artificial intelligence, maybe we can program it to look at your video feeds the way you would. And then what? And since you can't be everywhere at once and you can't look at all your camera feeds, and even if you could, humans are not very good at that task. We don't pay attention very well. I can't watch a boring movie and pay attention to it. And a surveillance system is really a dozen, 2 dozen, 100 really boring movies all going on at once. I'm not a good tool for watching all of that stuff. But AI doesn't get bored. And when it sees something looking at a view like you would look at it, it can call a human's attention to it. And maybe we can get to that point where in time to act, we can actually prevent things that would otherwise have gone wrong. So at this point, I am going to stop sharing this because I want to start sharing a video. And I want to jump to, I did some cuts of the actual software. This is, again, ambient AI, and it's tied to a video surveillance system and also tied to an access control system. So for purposes of the super short video here, I want to jump over to just a couple of screen caps that I did and a little bit of motion. So right now you should be looking at this video saying early warning signs detected. Keaton, can you confirm or deny?
Yep, I can see that.
Okay, I should have the audio off, I hope. Yeah, looks like I do. So what I wanted to show here is this is an example of ambient AI making decisions about what it's seeing in a live video feed. So if a door is propped open, it can detect that and send alerts. And what it's doing over to the left is it's dropping them in an alert bar that can be accessed by authorized personnel. It can be pushed out to mobile devices, but also logs live in the software. So these are just a couple of the things it is programmed to detect. Some of the others are people fighting, crowds forming, crowds quickly moving away. Um, so that is part of the technology of, as you could tell, it was several different cameras all at once. It was looking at what was otherwise a boring static movie. But when it saw something of interest, it recognized it. It makes a decision in a fraction of a second, and then can do something with that. What that something is can be a whole host of different things. It can be turning on lights, trying to alert people that it has detected them. It can play recordings. It can alert a monitoring center. It can alert you. It can alert a school resource officer who might be on site. Really, any number of things that can happen there. All right, so that was the first piece I wanted to show. Next, I'm going to scrub back a little bit, and I can make this video available. I kind of cut down some highlights of capabilities to about a 2.5 minute video, and I can make that available to you as well. What I wanted to show here is how it ties into the access control system. So one of the issues with an access control system, again, its detectors are great. It can detect when somebody props a door open and leaves it open, called a door ajar. It can tell when somebody forces a door open. It can tell whenever somebody tried to get in, presented a credential, and was denied entry. That actually happens fairly often if you've ever looked at your feed out of those systems. That's because the catch rate of the reader at the door isn't 100%. By that, I mean, I can present a perfectly good card, it beeps, it says access denied because there was some kind of a misread in the data. What do I do? If I know I'm allowed in, I just present it again and it catches it the second time and opens the door and I don't think anything of it. Well, if you had set it up to have those alerts sent to you or sent to a mobile device, it would drive you crazy. So these detectors not detecting often enough and missing critical events, that's pretty bad. But maybe just as bad is them detecting things that didn't happen, false positive, false alerts, and sending them on to people who are going to learn to ignore them. So that's not accomplishing the mission either and might be just as bad. So here I'm going to hit play, and what you're looking at is the alerts from the access control system over to the left, and then the video feed and the AI looking at what's actually happening live and verifying it the same way you would. If you saw one of these events and were looking at the camera, you'd look at the door and say, oh yeah, that was a real alarm. That was an alert I can count on, and you can see it looking at it again to make sure. Now here's a false alarm. So there's nobody at the door. The access control system, for whatever reason, maybe the door contact failed, said there was a door forced open there. AI looks at the camera feed, sees there's nobody there, and clears that alert and prevents it from ever going to you. So a couple of major capabilities there that um, just a quick little way of making sure that it's both sending the alerts that it needs to, catching the right things, and preventing the alerts that would have been false, and now getting us to a system where we can actually count on it and actually really rely on these systems to be automated and work without us. And then I'm going to jump to a quick spot on this second video just to show one last capability. Let me go to, I think it's 31 seconds in. All right, so we saw a person falling down, but another thing that it can see is sudden egress and crowds forming or strange crowd behavior. So I know a lot of you in the school space have an issue with you have cameras all over the hallways, but if an adverse event breaks out, if a crowd forms or a fight starts, you want to be alerted to it. Not really appropriate to set off alarms and bells and whistles, literally, or flashing lights. Certainly, well, probably at least not initially going to call the authorities. So a lot of those other systems aren't really appropriate in that instance. But have we really had a system where a non-human could look at all these video feeds, correctly identify something bad going on or just forming, and alert staff in time to do something about it? And this is always a tough one. This has been a situation that we've not really had wonderful answers for, but active shooter events, I hate to go dark, but I know that's on a lot of people's minds. And as a parent of kids in school, it's obviously on my mind as well. Um, I've seen a number of presentations on this, and the experts say the best thing we can do is cut down the response time. So typically it takes, in the best case, or maybe even in the median case, 20 to 25 minutes for someone to respond to something. And the earlier we can detect what's going on, the better. So if you've seen any of the videos I've posted on this, there are a lot of capabilities built around identifying somebody brandishing a weapon, a gun, or a knife, or looking like it might be a gun or a knife and trying to send that video somewhere. So this is a picture of that. So a person out in the parking lot pulls a weapon out of his vehicle, then stuffs it in a backpack and tries to tailgate his way into the building. Now, obviously, this was staged, thankfully. But that is what I had an opportunity to sit with some experts and ask them some pointed questions about, well, what would you do if it was your kid and your budget and you had to solve this? And the answer was make the camera something better than just a great witness. Minutes count here, and if you can get something that detects something in less than a second, that's the state of the art today. That's an actual leap forward into something that can get these things prevented faster. So obviously that doesn't apply to everybody, and it's not everybody's concern. But obviously, if that capability existed, you would want to know about it regardless of what industry you're in and who you're trying to protect. So I'm going to stop sharing that and jump to one last thing, and then we'll open up the Q&A. Pardon me just a second here. Keaton, while I'm doing this, do you see any questions popping in so far?
Don't have any questions quite yet.
Okay, I can jump to one of the ones that was sent to me previously. Oh, so how does this all work? It layers onto an existing camera feed. So that was one of the big other pluses and reason we chose this solution is that You don't have to rip or replace anything. This layers on top of things you already have and the way you already use them. It looks at every camera feed that we feed into it, and makes its decisions based on that. So we viewed that as a very large plus. Um, and with that, I'm going to jump to the thank you. And for the benefit of those of you who wrote in and are listening to this now, let me get to a couple of those questions. So here was one. How good do the cameras have to be to add the AI system? Which I thought was a really good question. The answer is about 1 to 2 megapixel. So they really have built it around existing infrastructure. 1 megapixel cameras, I'm not sure you could even buy one anymore. They went out of vogue about 10 years ago as the pixel density of the camera imagers got better and better. Nowadays, I mean, your phone has 5 megapixel. I think that's about the lowest of what we're installing these days. And they only go up from there. So really to feed into the AI system, we're going to be dumbing that down. It's a little too much data, definitely more than is needed to make good decisions. So a lot of existing cameras are more than adequate. Another one was, can one AI server handle multiple locations? I guess I didn't touch on this too heavily, but the way we do this is we put a very high-powered, super high processing speed server in a central location, and it needs access to all the video feeds. So the answer to can it handle multiple locations, only if they can be put on the same network. And I know some of you on this call are thinking, well, that's no problem. We have one network common to all of our locations. We have fiber between places or whatever. We have network infrastructure between the places. So that's great. But not everybody does. So some of these places where you have multiple different networks, that would have to be handled with multiple servers. And then the third one I got, if the server is set up for my current cameras, what happens when I want to expand? And kind of a good point. When we are designing systems like this and consulting with you, and we'll bring in the ambient AI engineers, we're going to want to plan for some reasonable amount of expansion. So these things aren't as modular as we've become accustomed to with a lot of the systems. One of the big advances in going to IP cameras was it's very easy to just bring a network drop and add camera 5, camera 6, camera 7. With this, we're going to have to lead the target a little bit and shoot for potential advances. Now, the other question I've commonly gotten, it wasn't specifically asked here, is do we have to do every camera on an existing system? And the answer to that is no. We can pick and choose which feeds it makes sense to have AI operate on and not do all of them. And of course, there's a cost consideration there. So there is a subscription per camera feed of these things, but it's I would say less than half of what having a live human monitor these things has been. So that's a service we've been providing for about 10 years. Is do you want a camera feed also running, 10 years ago, AI tied to our monitoring center, and if it sees something, have us interdict and intervene. That has been a subscription you've been able to have for a number of years now. Given that this is an automated system, we're able to bring that cost way, way down. And in my opinion, I think we're going to discover that performance improves because of what I mentioned before, the AI being so much better at catching what it needs to and eliminating false alarms. So, any other questions popping in or anything anybody wants to address? I'm pretty much at time, so we can do it in a minute. We'll do it. All right. Well, if not, I believe everybody has my email. Oh, I saw something pop into the chat. The Q&A isn't working. Thank you, Joelle. Very glad to have done this. Really appreciate everybody for jumping on and your attention. Look for the email with the link to the recording, and of course, reach out. Glad to field any future questions on the topic. Thanks, everybody.